All right, let's talk about humidity for your guitar. Um, your guitar, your acoustic guitar, needs to stay in the range of about 35% relative humidity to about 50% relative humidity. So the first thing you need to know is relative humidity, and that is the humidity of the air with respect taking into account the temperature of the air. So if the air is cold, it's going to be denser, it's going to hold more water molecules, and your humidity will be higher. Right now, for instance, here, I'm at 8,500 feet elevation. It's about 10 degrees outside, snow cover. The humidity on my weather station says it's about 85%. But if you take that air at 10 degrees Fahrenheit and heat it up into my room, which is about 65 degrees temperature, the humidity will plummet because the air expands and the water molecules are farther apart, so there is less relative humidity. And that's why in the wintertime, your relative humidity will plummet because you're taking outside air, you're heating it up. You've got to add moisture back into that air. A couple of ways to do that. In your guitar, again, 35 to 50% is a sweet spot. Me, I shoot for about 40 to 45%. If I get too much humidity in a room, you'll have condensation on the windows, and that'll drip down into the windowsills and cause all kinds of problems and that sort of thing. Out in the shop, I've got the windows covered with plastic wrap, so the windowsills themselves don't clog up. And plus, you got a barrier of dead air in there. That helps a lot. For your guitar, though, you got a couple things. Number one, the single most important thing is for you to get a hygrometer, and you can go big on hygrometers, and you can get an actual sling hygrometer. You can get hygrometers you can calibrate and all that sort of thing. I use electronic hygrometers, and what I do is have 3 or 4 or 5 of them and sit them out there and check them. How do they compare to each other? There's also a technique of putting water and salt into a bag, and that is a known humidity, and you can test it against that. But what you don't know is how that hygrometer reacts at the extremes, back and forth. So it's a good idea to check your hygrometer against something. And I just do that. Again, you've got a range, you've got 35 to 50. So that's if you keep it at 40, you're probably good. I use these hygrometers back here. Let's get the camera on them. Okay, this is the hygrometer that I use. Look how big my face is. Boy, that's scary, isn't it? Because I have zoomed in using my fancy new zoomy camera on this hygrometer, which I keep on the wall. And as you can see, it's 39%, 63 degrees. So that's okay. That's a little low right now, but it's not bad. And I'll tell you why it's low in just a second. Let's zoom off of it. Oh, yeah. And the brand name on this, if you can see it here, it's a Thermo Pro. I would take it off the wall, but it's stuck up there with a piece of tape. Thermo Pro. I have like 6 of these. All right, there we go, back in my chair. And you can see the Thermo Pro right up there on the wall, right above Keith's head. I have about 6 of those. They're really good hygrometers. They cost $12 on Amazon. They're cheap, and they work really good. I recommend you keep one in a case, keep one on the wall like I do here, keep one wherever your guitars are. And you need to know what your guitar is before you start humidifying it. Now, after you learn the signs of excess humidity or not enough humidity, you will learn to read your guitar. Every guitar is a little bit different, and the number is relative humidity. It's also relative to the instrument. Some instruments can go a little bit drier than other instruments. An instrument that's kept in a very humid environment, like say back east, where you guys get a lot of rain in the summer, your natural humidity might go up 75, 80%. I remember being at Kaufman Camp one year in Tennessee, Maryville, Tennessee, and I took my hygrometer, and that sucker read 99% in the morning. I expected little thunderclouds to come rolling through my room, It was so humid. it got up there. 99% humidity in my room, in the dorm room. If you have a place like that that has that kind of high humidity, what happens? The cells of the wood will swell up. Because the guitar is a box, it has only so much room for expansion. Those cells will swell, and then they'll actually squish so that they fit in that box. And the cells will actually get squished down, and then when the guitar dries out, then all of a sudden you've got a smaller guitar and crack shitty. So it's funny that a guitar that's exposed to high humidity, when the humidity drops, that guitar may actually look and will be dry. Even though the humidity might be 50%, 40%, that guitar needs a higher humidity because it was exposed to a higher humidity. I saw this firsthand after Hurricane Katrina, and I got a series of guitars in. That was my goodwill mission, to repair some guitars that came in from Hurricane Katrina. They're actually literally floating around in the water. When I got them, I swear, I would have thought they came from Death Valley. The tops were just sunken, caved in. All the braces were loose. And, the guitar looked like extremely dry to me. So I asked my friend Mario Prue, who knows a lot more about this stuff than I do, I asked him what the deal was. And he's the one that explained to me the concept of the shrinking box. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So don't take these numbers just as a gospel truth. You've got to learn to read your guitar. Those Katrina guitars had to be humidified after I fixed them up. They had to be humidified much more than another guitar. A guitar that comes from Pennsylvania, gets more in the factory, gets shipped out to Colorado, and lives its life in a drier environment. It's used to that. That's what the cells are used to. So the guitar from the really moist climate had to be humidified, had to be kept up to that humidity. Back before CITES and all that stuff, I used to get a guitar from a guy in Hong Kong, and he shipped me several guitars to work on. And Hong Kong was extremely humid, and I saw those kind of humidity problems. I have a customer in Hawaii, a couple of customers in Hawaii. In fact, my 1972 Shop D18 came from Hawaii. And Hawaii, of course, is very humid. So knowing that, I take extra precautions to make sure that guitar is humidified a little more than I normally would when I'm working on it. Okay? But you got to learn to read the guitar. Read the guitar, and then use your hygrometer here to help you maintain a range. It's not going to hurt if your guitar is exposed to a dry climate for a day or 2 days, or maybe even 3 days. It's not going to just magically blow up. But 3 days of an extremely different climate is probably kind of pushing it. So get yourself a hygrometer, first of all, so that you know what you're doing. You know what your humidity is. If you ever ask me a question about should I humidify my guitar, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what's your humidity? What's your relative humidity? Get a hygrometer, put it in your case, put it up on the wall, keep it with your guitars. Okay. Well, one way you can humidify your guitars is with a room humidifier, like I have right here. And this is an air care humidifier. I've had several humidifiers over the years. I like the air care. I don't know what model this is. They've got several. The main thing, you'll find out real quick, it holds about 5.5 gallons of water. On this one, the cover comes off, and you get a bucket of water, and you just pour it right straight down into the tub. There's 2 or 3 models like that. They're all about the same, and the models change all the time. But this is the one where you do that. You pour the water straight into it. I've been pretty happy with this because it's so convenient to have a bucket and carry it from the bathroom, from the bathtub, or at the shop in Los Alamos. I go fill it up in the utility sink. I carry a 5-gallon bucket in there, and I dump it in the thing, fill it up or whatever. It's very, very, very convenient to fill. The air filters and the air care are really good. They last a long time. Um, I've got other filters, other brands that would only get like half wet. And then that means that the bottom half of that filter clogs up with minerals, which they will all do. And you'd end up using those for a month, in New Mexico, where I'm pouring 5 gallons a day in here. Maybe not five. I'm pouring 3.5 gallons a day into this thing. 5 gallons every other day, just about. That's a lot of water going through this system to keep this room somewhat humidified, to keep this corner of the room somewhat humidified. So you will go through filters pretty often. I have found that the air care filters, I've had them last 6 months, and that's really, really good. The other type of humidifier that I used to have was the Bemis consoles, the big consoles, and they have 2 water bottles in them. Those worked really good, but the water bottles were a real pain in the butt. They would develop little pinhole leaks in them, and then they wouldn't hold pressure, and then the water would spill out all over the floor, and I can't tell you how many times that would happen. I mean, 2, 3, 4, 5 times I can remember where the water bottles leaked that way and spilled water all over the floor. Pain in the butt. The air care doesn't do that because you pour the water straight into this tub, into this holding pattern. So I like the air cares a lot. I've got 3 of them. I got one in Los Alamos, one in the shop, and one in here in the music corner. If you can't humidify your entire room, try to humidify a closet, or try to humidify a corner of the room. Be careful on closets, because if you get a lot of humidity in there, you can develop mildew. But again, you want to have a hygrometer in there, and so that you're keeping it at about for 40%. It doesn't hurt to keep a fan circulating in there too, so that the water doesn't pool up in one spot. But be careful in the closet a little bit because of the problem of mildew, mold. That's a pretty severe health hazard. In my room here, I've got a studio apartment, and the main room is out there, and this is just a corner of the room right here. So just this corner stays humidified here. And it's up to about 40% right now. But if you walk over there to the other side of the room, it's about 20% over there. So the air circulates here, and then I have a ceiling fan, which is off right now. And that also keeps the air circulating. I don't get condensation anywhere. I had those black streaks back there. That's from a roof leak where it condensate up there, and then that would just slowly drip down, very minor and very intermittent. And I've been up in there looking for mold and that kind of thing, and it looks real clean and everything. But if you get condensation up on the walls or up on the ceiling or something, you got to get that air circulating. I have that problem in the shop. The shop is a smaller space. I try to keep the humidity up in the whole building, and because it's not part of the house, it's isolated little building. It doesn't have the heat or the space of the entire house. That humidity is contained into a little area, and it condensates pretty bad. So at night, if I'm not in the shop, I have a box fan up there in the attic area, and I turn it on, plug it in, and I get that air circulating through there. So that gets that humidity stirred up and doesn't let it condensate. And I tell you what, that helps the humidity in that building a lot right there. Once you start circulating that air, it gets all that moisture moving around and keeps it all much more even. So that's something about humidifying. If you can't humidify a closet or a small space area, a small room, something like that, then I recommend you probably start humidifying your guitar. A couple ways to do that. I don't have a guitar, do I? No, I don't. My favorite way is a simple sponge and a baggie. And I used to do this when I was a college student, living on about $500 a month, and I didn't have any extra money whatsoever. So I use the dampets, you know, the green things. And the trouble is, out here in New Mexico, those things dry up in about an hour. And plus they're like $12.95 or something. And I had, you know, 2 guitars, and you know, I couldn't afford it. So I started looking at those, and I said, you know, it's a sponge, and it's not a very big sponge either. And they tend to drip because of the way the thing's constructed. So I started using just real sponges. This is an Ocello kitchen sponge. You want to get a real sponge. You don't want the plastic junk there's a fake sponge. Get yourself a real sponge, an elephant ear sponge. You know, artists use those. But the Ocello is a good brand. It's a kitchen sponge. And cut yourself off a little piece like that. Then what you do is you get a Ziploc bag. This is a snack pack, Ziploc. And you punch holes in it. And by punch holes, I mean you take this thing and you fold it over 2 or 3 or 4 times like this. And you get a hole puncher. The kind that punches holes. And you punch it. Pow, pow, pow. So that you end up with holes in your baggie. And the reason I'm emphasizing the holes so much is because people sometimes take a fork or a knife and they cut slits. And it just doesn't work as well. This has an honest to goodness hole in it. So the humidity will come out of that. So take your sponge, soak it in water, get it nice and wet, and then squeeze it. Okay? And this one's got just enough moisture in it that if I squeeze it hard, it's going to drip right here. But that's okay. Let's go. See? Here comes the drip. Squeezing it. Okay? Shake it out a little bit. You want it, I don't want to say wet. You want it on the wet side of damp, you know. All right, so people say, wow, won't it leak? Not if you get a good kitchen sponge. The whole idea of a good kitchen sponge is to absorb water. This won't leak. I mean, you can sit here and shake it. It's not leaking. Plus, not much. It's still pretty wet. Plus, it is in a baggie right here, and you didn't punch holes in the corner of your baggie. So you can set the sponge in here like this, and you seal it up, like so, and now you are good to go. And honestly, what I would do with these is I used to just drop them right straight in the body of a guitar. They're going to move around as you play the guitar. You put it in your case. They're rarely going to sit in one spot. And even if they do, there's no sponge contacting anything. The sponge is in the Ziploc. It's not going to drip if you squoze it out. And that's where your moisture needs to be, is in there. Enough of it will come out of the sound hole to humidify your fingerboard. And you do need to humidify your fingerboard. For instance, electric guitars over here. The body's not going to change much if this guitar dries out, but the fingerboard will. And most of you guys maybe are probably familiar with the term fret sprout. Fret sprout is when your fingerboard shrinks and you can feel the edges of the frets right there. And you have to then sand them down, file them down. What am I trying to say? I don't want to use the word file. You have to file those edges down again. Even if you humidify it again, you'll never get the frets to go back in properly. So if you get, and also as your fingerboard shrinks, your relief will increase, and you get a tough playing guitar. So the fingerboards need love too, especially the rosewood fingerboard on that Strat. The Telecaster over here is finished over. It's not quite as sensitive as the Strat is, or the Les Paul has a rosewood fingerboard. Your fingerboards need love too, and that's why I don't like those covers that go on the sound hole. Those trap all the humidity in the guitar, and they also don't let the air move in and out of the guitar. So you can trap a lot of humidity in there, and you can sometimes end up with mold in your guitar, which is not fun. Okay, but I would drop these sometimes, many times, straight into the guitar, especially if I had a Martin or something and I was hanging it on the wall like this. Back in the day, the college days, I didn't have a humidifier like this. I couldn't afford one, and I didn't even know they existed, to be honest, because, you know, that was well before the internet. I had no idea that they even made this sort of thing, and even if they did, it wouldn't work because I lived at the time in an old ranch house. It was an abandoned ranch house, and you could see air through all four sides of the windows. The only heat we had in there was a small pot-bellied wooden stove, and the wind would howl 30, 40, 50 miles an hour and just blow in through there like crazy. So there was no way in the world you were going to humidify that house. But I put one of these inside the guitar and kept it humidified. And I know it did because my guitar, my 73 D28, had a crack in it where I accidentally kicked it a week after I owned it, and I put a crack in it. And you could watch that crack open and close. And if it opened up, the guitar was getting dry. And if it closed back up, the guitar was about where it needed it to be. You drop one of these inside the guitar, hanging on the wall, and it was good. And then at night, I would put it back in the case, you see. But during the day, it'd be up on the wall, so I could play it every now and then while I was working on my master's thesis or needed a break or something like that. So, okay, so that's what you can do. That's where you can use these sponges. You can put them in your guitar. You can hang your guitar up here on the wall. They're easier to get down. You're going to play it more. The air circulation around the guitar is a pretty good thing. On acoustic guitars, they're going to feel and sense the vibrations in the room. So if you're playing music on your stereo over here, those guitars will vibrate a little bit. And you can come over when you have a good rock and roll album on over there with a good bass and put your hand on that guitar and man, you'll feel it vibrating. I just think the guitars sound better when they're out in the air like that. So in a dry environment, I would not hesitate to drop one of these inside the guitar if it's out on the wall or on a stand during the day. And then at night, when the temperature drops, your temperature and your humidity in the room is probably going to drop too because the air is colder, but you're heating it up, so your relative humidity in the room is going to plummet. Put the guitar in the case for the evening and just leave the sponge in it, you know? If you don't want to do that, take your sponge, put it in the case. Don't put it in the pocket, because if you put it in the pocket, all you're going to do is trap all that humidity inside that pocket. You know, you can punch holes in the top of the pocket. You could do that kind of thing. But what I do is just put it behind the heel in the guitar. Usually in most cases, there's enough room between the heel and the wall of the case, and you can get one of those in there and set it in there. Again, you ought to have a hygrometer inside that case. Maybe use Velcro or double stick tape. Put it up underneath the headstock area. Put it someplace where, of course, the guitar is not going to hit it. Don't put it on the lid of the case so that you shut the case on the thing. Put it in there. See what it is. I mean, you could even set it on the floor of the case, lay the guitar in there, and lay it on the ground, and don't pick it up again. And in the morning, take a look at it and see what the humidity is inside the case. You just need to know, what's going on inside there. You want to be careful with cases like Carlton cases, Pegasus cases, any top-end case that has a rubber seal on it. Those things hold humidity. And boy, let me tell you what, you can really over-humidify an instrument. I have over-humidified a D18 GE where I could not get it out of the case. It had swollen so much, I couldn't get it out of the case. And I knew what was going on because I could see the top had this arch in it. I go, man, I over-humidified it. So I just left the case open for a day or so. The guitar shrunk down. I got it out. But, that's how I learned about that. I over-humidified a mandolin in a Carlton case, too. Kentucky mandolin, that Kentucky 1000 that's on my video thing. It's my daughter's mandolin. I over-humidified that. And I got it out, and the action was like that. And I thought, wow, it needs a neck reset. And then I thought, no. I bet I over-humidified it. So I hung it up on the wall, and it took 5 days. And it took 5 days, and that action went down. But the funny thing about that is after it dried out, that mandolin sounded so much better. And I know that because I have a couple of mandolins, so I compare them all the time. I had put a tone right on that mandolin for 2 weeks, And I didn't like the way the tone was going on it. You know, it was getting less distinct. And I just didn't like the way it was going. I took the tone right off of it and sold it. But after that thing got over humidified and then dried out, it was killer. It had this wonderful, open, clear sound. And that's because the shells got smushed together and then dried out, so now everything was tighter on it, you know. The top was tight, probably on the verge of breaking, you know, but it was tighter. And boy, man, that sounded so good. So, you can over-humidify things. You need to get a hygrometer in there. Okay, so let's talk again about some of the commercial things. Bovita pack, the various little packs as you can get to put together and things. Those are fine in certain places. Here in New Mexico, Colorado, they're not enough. I know guys that are using those and brought me the guitars and dried. I got a Collings a little while ago. When we were having the forest fires and stuff, and it was really dry. And then I got that Collings in, and I just took one look at it, and I'm like, man, God, that thing is dry. The top was just absolutely caved in like this, and the bridge was off. The bridge was so loose that between the wings of the bridge and the top, there was probably about that much clearance, you know, not quite a quarter of an inch, more than an eighth. There was the bridge was completely clear of the top. Big old crack right down the middle of it too, you know, of course. Driest guitar I have ever in my life seen, except for the Death Valley guitars, the Katrina guitars. So I took that guitar and I laid it on the bench in the shop, and it started raining, so the natural humidity was up to about 45%. Not real high, but, you know, 40%. I laid it on the bench and I did nothing. 3 days later, the top had come up so well that the bridge, you couldn't even tell the bridge was loose. The bridge was flush on the top. The top had come up, had that nice little bow that it's supposed to have. The bridge was smack dab on the top again. I mean, that's how much difference the humidity made. From a gap between the wings of the bridge and the top to being so tight that you couldn't even tell that bridge was loose. Of course, I knew, and, you know, I took it off and re-glued it and everything. But the crack closed completely up. Wasn't quite invisible because it was dirty now, because it had opened up and dirt got in there and people were rubbing their fingers on it. Oh, look at the crack, you know. You rub a grip from your hand in there. There was nothing I could do to make that crack invisible. Don't ever touch a crack, or you get dirt in it. Okay, but that's the difference that dryness and humidity make. So, the packs that he had in there were not even close to being enough. 2 sponges would have saved that guitar's life probably, but you don't know. You have no idea unless you know, 1, how to read the guitar, or 2, you have a hygrometer in there. Those are the most important things you can have. You have a hygrometer, which helps you learn to read the guitar. And you just got to have it. In fact, I think they're so important that I'm about ready to buy about 100 of those and just ship them out every time somebody sends me a guitar. They're $10, you know. So I pad my fees by $10 to pay for the thing, and then I know that the customer's got a hygrometer. I have included, I don't know how many of these things in their guitars. When I ship a guitar, especially during the winter, a lot of times I take a blue paper towel and dampen it, you know, get it wet, squeeze it out so it's just a damp paper towel. I drop it right inside the guitar for shipping. Customer gets his guitar, there's a blue paper towel in there. What's this, you know? That's a quickie little humidifier so that your guitar had some humidity while it was traveling. Take it out, you know? Make sure you keep some humidity in there. Okay, humidity. God, I love these things. These are so cheap. You can make 100 of these for $5. You know, you get a snack pack, Ziploc. You get the kitchen sponges. They're only a couple of bucks. Cut them up, stick them in here, and you got homemade humidifiers that work as good as anything I have ever used, ever. I've used them all. These. And you can control them. Too much humidity? Take it out. Boom! Your guitar's down to where it ought to be. You need more humidity? Put another one in there. If I get guitars that are really, really bad, sometimes what I'll do is I'll take 3 or 4 of these, drop them in the bottom of a great big 55-gallon heavy-duty trash bag, put the guitar in the trash bag, tape it up around the neck, and hang it on the wall. And then that way the entire guitar body is inside this humidity chamber. Looks pretty good. You don't want to humidify it too fast, so I'll try 1, and then if that's not doing it, I'll put 2 in there. If that's not doing it, then I'll kick it up to 3, and bring the humidity up a little bit. So, okay, well, anyway, homemade humidifiers. Check your guitar, take care of it, okay? That's why there's no acoustics on the wall right now, because it's really dry. I had to run to Los Alamos. When I go to Los Alamos, I don't know how long I'm going to be gone. 1 day, 5 days, I don't know. I don't want my humidifier will run out after 2 days, and I don't want to have guitars hanging on the wall and come home and find them crack. So when I leave, head out of here to go to Los Alamos, I put all the guitars up, put one of these in there, give them a little bit of extra humidity, and I watch the cracks, and I watch the dings, and I watch the top, and I watch that sort of thing to make sure they're doing good. Plus, it's cold in the closet where I put them, and if you've paid attention in this video, you know that cold air results in increased relative humidity. So by cold, I mean it's 50 degrees in the closet. It's back there. It's not part of the insulated house. So it's 50 degrees back in there. The relative humidity is about 45%, which is perfect, So seems like a good deal to just put them in a case and put them up. And then when I'm home, running around and doing things, I typically hang a guitar. But right now I'm redecorating, so I went ahead and put the electrics up on the wall. So everything you needed to know about humidity. Feel free to ask me questions in the comments, disagree with me, whatever you want to do. Later.